What's up, you beauties? Welcome to High and Wide Hockey YouTube channel, episode 7. I'm your host, Jim Iacovone, joined as always by Jack Smith. And if you're catching us live on YouTube, make sure to smash that subscribe button and hit the alert so you guys never miss a show. And for all the podcast listeners out there, don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcast or Spotify so you're first in line when the newest episodes drop. The Flyers, the disconnect continues, but I'll tell you what's not disconnected, and that's fans of Philly, Jack.
Flyers fans, we've got something special for you today. Looking to take your game experience to the next level? Then look no further than fans of Philly. With over 14 years experience, they're the go-to teams putting together an unforgettable travel package for die-hard Philly sports fans. Why fans of Philly, you ask? Let me break it down for you. These guys have spent years building the best relationships with bars, hotels, teams, transportation, you name it. Every trip, the plane gets better, and trust me, they'll make sure your experience is top-notch. Whether it's scouting out the perfect hotel, finding the hottest nightlife, or securing the best seats in the arena, fans of Philly has it all figured out. They know how to make your road trip an absolute blast. So head on over to fansophilly.com. That's fansophilly.com, and book your next Flyers road trip today.
Thank you, Jack. Okay, so we're what are we, 2-3 weeks into the Flyers season, Jack? And look, this isn't the start that I think any of us expected to be talking about. Flyers are 2-6-1. They seemed, I think, Saturday to maybe show signs of life that, okay, maybe they're starting to work their way through this here. And then Montreal came in last night and kind of took it to the Flyers. So we're going to get into individual players, and obviously we want to talk about that top line, the 5-point nights from TK and Couturier, and Michkov leading the NHL rookies in points, and how he looks as advertised and all that stuff. But there's a lot more concerns than there are positives right now, right, Jack?
Hands down. I mean, let's face it. The Flyers have played 9 games, and they've really lost 7 of them. Like, they have. If I'd have told you the way this preseason went, that after basically 10 games played, the Flyers had only 2 wins and only one of them was in regulation, like, that's incredible. And I am grateful. I'm very grateful. The Flyers managed to pull their act together to give my son his first ever Flyers game, not only a win, but a wild win, pun intended, in their 7-5 win over the Wild. But even that game, there were signs for concern. I mean, this second period thing is an absolute joke. It reminds me of teams of the past, which is scary. Look, we named our episode disconnected, and there's a reason we did that. That's the word that's been asked. It came from Scott Lawton in post-game interviews. He's the one that used the word, and the reporters were smart enough to ask the next 3 players and the coach about that word, and they all had their different way of describing what it meant. It was, for the most part, pretty. Everybody had the same answer. Sanheim and Torts, for sure, are talking about playing in 5 units and whatnot, but I'm not going to get too much into the X's and O's. Point is, they admitted, while, yes, they've been a team for a while now, the forwards aren't exactly giving the defense an outlet pass. They're playing too far. They need to come in further and support each other. I heard that being thrown around a lot. Got to support this person, got to support that person, all while we have a backup goalie coming in who's killing the team's morale. In the first 2 periods of the game, we already know they don't play good in the second period. And then Erson finally, he had a couple of good games fail. The team comes out flat for him. It has been a jumbled mess. So jumbled so that the Flyers said, you know what, Jet, you're going back. Don't want you anywhere around this team. Don't want you anywhere around this madness. We're going to figure it out ourselves, and you're just going to go back and develop. Thanks for everything you gave us. You were above expectations, but we got to figure our own stuff out right now. That's how crazy things have been, how bad they have been. And it's still early enough to figure things out. But to analyze what we've seen in the first 9 games, it's been anything but pretty.
That's for sure. And So the word disconnected you mentioned has been used, and I think that's the word that we were all kind of using too. I think we were saying last week disjointed, like the team's just. So a word I like to use when a team's playing well is like you need synergy on a team, right? Like everyone's playing their own part for the overall success of the team, and it doesn't really make sense because the majority of this team was here last year. And so, like I'm having trouble figuring out what's the cause of the disconnect. Well, like, and if we can talk about that for a second, like, where does that come from? Why is that happening? Right? Like, if we go back to Scott Walker, yes, Scott Walker was moved. Jamie Drysdale was, brought in last year as well, and he's essentially in the Scott Walker spot with Nick Seeler. Other than that, not much has changed on the defense. We've talked about already forward wise. Sure, they've inserted Michkov into the lineup, and the 100 lineup changes don't bother me because they're trying to figure out what works. They need to figure out who can play with Michkov, right? And I think we maybe saw that. We got at least one answer on Saturday against Minnesota. Like the top line should be Couturier, Michkov on the right side, and Konechny is playing on the left side. That line looked great. I think another answer that we got was, and yeah, maybe the Flyers play kind of forced the hand a little bit. But Jack, you were right for the last few weeks saying that I think Briere wants Luchenko back as soon as possible, and Torts is kind of keeping him up. And Briere said as much with one of his responses. He said they're trying to develop a top six center, not a bottom six center. And that's where Luchenko was playing with the Flyers in the games that he got in, right? So they want him focused on offense. They want an elite offensive player from Jet Luchenko. He's already responsible defensively and can skate like the wind. But they don't need him focusing on defense so much at the NHL level to the point where maybe it takes away from his offensive development, if that makes sense. At least that's what I got from Briere's answer. And when he said it like that, it really made a lot of sense to me. Like, let this kid go play his game and get his confidence offensively. He knows the training camp now with the Flyers. He knows how to eat as an NHL player. He knows how to work out as an NHL player. He's seen the NHL now, and he has all that experience to bring back next season. Add in that, in my opinion, the games that Noah Cates has played in has looked pretty good. And this is not a knock on Luchenko in the slightest bit. But what Cates does well, I believe that he does better at the NHL level than anything that Jet Luchenko could do right now, if that makes sense. Like Cates' strengths, the Flyers could use Cates' strengths right now more than they can use, Jet Luchenko trying to, get his feet wet in the NHL. Do you know what I mean? Like the season, you said it, the season is already in dire straits. I know it's early, but they're 2-6-1, and they don't really look like they're figuring things out anytime soon. So I thought that was interesting. And if we can, let's continue to talk about individual players here. There are a few players. I mean, we talked in over the summer, Jack. Like, not everyone is going to progress forward. And Torts said himself, like, I think he was expecting everyone to take that leap together, and very rarely does that happen, right? There's always somebody that maybe had a really good rookie season, and then the next, what do they call it, sophomore slump or whatever. And I'm on record as saying I think if I had to pick a guy, Forrester was going to be that guy. Now he still might not. He had a great first game of the year, but he was healthy scratched for a game. Bobby Brink was healthy scratched for a game. Owen Tippett, and if you want to have a conversation about Owen Tippett, Jack, like,
well, he's having a sophomore slump for sign new contract.
Doesn't look anything like how he did last year.
He does look a little snake bitten, but he does make some really low percentage choices, which baffle me. I'm like, look, if this works, it's going to look really great. But you're going to lose possession. And he does. And it's like, why are you doing that? Like, you're better than this. You're clearly better than this. And he did have some times early on where he has made his speed count and, things of that nature. But at the end of the day, he's not getting goals and he's not getting in position because he just makes the wrong decision. And I never thought it was a good idea to put him out there with Michkov. They're two different stylistic players. Like, they were on a 2-on-1 and it was a clear move to pass it to Michkov, but Tippett's a shooter, so he's shooting, and you kind of want him to shoot just so he scores and gets the monkey off his back. But he should have passed it. It would have been a dunk for Michkov, and the two just never made sense to me. So we wasted time there. We finally got the line now, which you alluded to earlier at the Wild game with Coots. His coming out party for this year. He was on, what was it, 32 game scoreless?
Oh man, I had no idea. Like
I didn't know it was that bad. I just found that out because they said it something at the game when I was there, and I was like, "Whew, I didn't realize it was that bad." And it was, on top of it being his 500 point. He hadn't scored a goal since he was made captain. Jeez, like that's incredible. Like, so it was good to get that monkey off his back. That they should leave that line alone, please. Of Coots centering Michkov and connecting on the left. He hasn't played left before. He's unsure. Well, he had a 5-point night, so I'm sure he's fine. I'm sure it's good. So leave that line alone, please. Let's get some, because I'm not a big fan of all the juggling. I'm not using it as an excuse like other people are. This team, the majority of this team has been together for quite some time. They should not be foreign to how they play. They practice every freaking day, but at the same time, like, can we keep some of the line combinations together? We have seen what does and doesn't work. So hopefully, like we have a first line that'll go a long way with this team. That the power play, which is Michkov, feels like Michkov alone is just improved the power play. And when he brings that puck out to the point,
like let's I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you literally called that over the summer. I think I mentioned it during one of the post games, but you owed some props there.
Well, it was a little bit like a thumbs to Rocky Thompson being like, if he can't it's up with this guy. I just think of it like you're up a man, but there's also more open ice, and a guy like Michkov with open ice. That little move he's making to the top of the zone center and throwing it on net. I mean, I wouldn't say he's perfect, but he's pretty close. And that's exactly what they need. Somebody doing something on the power play that you can't account for. And I don't know if they do that to the Wild like they did if he doesn't score that goal later. It seemed like all the momentum. That was early. I made it like 3-2 Flyers. Like all the momentum was going towards. Obviously they gave up a 2-goal lead. Period was coming to an end. They actually give the goal back, and it's 3-3 before the end of the second. But I think just proving that they could still score because Minnesota was undefeated going in that, at least in regulation. Yeah. I was like, I think they were 6-0-1 or something, or 5-0-1. So it was definitely good. Erson had a little bit of a rough game. I'm going to be honest. There's games where he's got hung out to dry and he's had rough games. That was a rough game. That's a good team. It just is what it is. But he definitely had a rough game. And then on top of all this, all the Fedotov stuff, the debacles with the two capital games that come out completely flat for the one. Fedotov has a horrible game, but the Flyers have this amazing push, and he even played well after he gave up the fourth goal. Went pretty good the rest of the way. I was writing on his NHL career tombstone after that, the second period, and he played well enough where I'm like, okay, he's probably going to get another look. But here comes Kolosov already. It's like, okay, I guess not. Second game of a back-to-back, and the Flyers looked like it was like back-to-back. Then they had played 50 games in the season, not 8. Like, that was ridiculous. Like, the effort they gave on Sunday was just embarrassing and stupid. Kolosov, you want to blame a goal on him? Maybe the Caulfield one, but because he didn't have the pipe covered. But, damn, he really found a spot and picked it. And that's a goal scorer's goal right there. Not much you can say. I'm not too upset with Kolosov. But the team as a whole is just, they're not banging on all cylinders. They're saying disconnected. It shows. And this second period drought thing has just been absolutely atrocious. It's probably got a lot to do with that and being disconnected. Why they're disconnected baffles me.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, because like, where does that come from? They should all be on the same page. It should have only gotten better, stronger in year 3. If there's disconnect, it's like, look, like, let's just be honest here. When there's disconnect like that, are guys not buying in? Are guys Are guys, kind of turning on the coach a little bit? Like, what's the problem here? What's going on with that?
I can't do
Right?
it. I can't do it.
I know we don't want to
I know
talk
you're.
about
I
it.
know. I know.
I know. Like, I don't want to talk about it either. Like, I don't. But
It's
how could
bad.
there be disconnect? It's the same team. Yeah,
You
and
know,
we heard it was such a good summer. Guys stuck
yeah,
around in Philly. Like
they're
like
fighting
Forster
for
was
each
here all
other.
summer. Drysdale was here all summer.
Coots
Like,
is dropping the gloves in the preseason. Like, yeah, they're here for each other. Yeah, I just think some guys don't got it. I think this is a very important year for Danny Briere. Say what you will about him and our expectations coming into the year, and I do think some of it is last year. They didn't just have no expectations; their expectations were to be like a basement team. So they threw that in
look a
people's
lot like they
face.
did. They look a lot like they did at the end of last season.
Yeah, but they also look a lot like they did the previous 2 years. Like how they,
That's why I'm
did.
worried.
And I am too. And a part of that is they had no expectations last year. They were predicted to be a basement level team. They so far, and it's early, I get that, but so far they look like a basement level team right now. Like they don't
But
look.
why though? That's my thing.
They only lost Sean Walker and Hart. Maybe some Atkinson. Like that's silly. And
Goaltending is a
Peterson.
huge thing. So if we need like an out here, like if we don't want to go the coach route, like I'll give that an out and say, okay, Flyers goaltending's been really suspect, through the first 9 games or so, right? Like if we want to steer this conversation somewhere else, because I think, like, look, like if we're trying to cancel things out and find reasons for why there's disconnect, because this is the word that they're using. They gave it to us, right? Like, how can there be disconnect? It's the same team, right? But look, yeah, they're 2-6-1 to start this year, and it's early. But at the end of last year, they were getting outshot really bad. They were getting outplayed really bad. Why? And so another thing I want to bring up that if we don't want to go, okay, the players are, starting to distance themselves from the coach a little bit. Not all, maybe some, not all. Tortorella mentioned in one of his believe it or not, Torts is really deliberate with what he says, and he'll give you hints at what's going on. There was a post game or a post practice show where he had mentioned the guys are trying to figure it out. What's there to figure out? If everything's the same, what's there to figure out? And look, I think our buddy Travis actually even tweeted it last night. The strategies changed. They're not as aggressive in transition as they were. Or if they are, other teams know that it's coming, or they're using disconnected. I think Torts even mentioned they're not moving in fives. Maybe there's disconnect in that way, but it doesn't make sense to me. Why is there the disconnect? Like we heard all summer, great camp. Torts has one of the toughest camps around. Like, all we heard was it was a great camp from the guys. Everyone showed up in shape. It's year 3. They know what to expect. Is it a mental thing? What's the problem here? Are they not grasping the new strategy? Because again, if we want to go away from the coach, that's another out. There's a new strategy, and the Flyers are either struggling implementing it, or it's the wrong strategy, which, in my opinion, goes back to the coach.
If he changed up strategy, and to me, why did he do that? Well, the point at which the team did that was when they traded Sean Walker. Was he that vital to this team? Like, is that they had to change everything up? Why would they have to do that? To me, you're pretty much getting the goaltending, at least from Ersan, so you don't have to worry about. It's just your backup. When the backup's in, I feel like we're looking at a different game. You're just looking at the team to survive the first period and not get completely demoralized when he gives up a bad goal. So these are really just Ersan games when they have their best foot forward. And what's different? What's changed? And they're less aggressive. Their neutral zone play has become a joke. That's where they're losing the games. Like, there's no control. When they played the Wild and they won this game 7-5, after they scored the first 2 goals within the first 5 minutes, I'll say about 5 minutes, so the 15-minute point of the first period, to basically when Michkov scored at the end of the second. Like, they did nothing. It was all Minnesota, and they hung on as long as they could before they finally broke and gave up some goals. Luckily, they pulled it all back in the third. They tend to do that a lot. They did that against Washington in the second game. They tried to do it with Montreal the other night, and it's like that's what like the teams of the past have done. Give you an a-hole effort for like the majority of the game and try to make up for it at the end and fall short. And that's what they've done at least 3 or 4 times. Team last year gave us 100%. They gave us 60 minutes. This team's not giving you 60 minutes, no matter what excuse you want to make. And it's right. It's really right in that second period. And I don't know why they're so lackadaisical. I don't know why they're using the word disconnected. To me, I would hope that certain people disconnected with giving a shit. Like, I think Lawton cares. I don't know if the skill's there, but he's the one who used the words. Maybe he's seeing something. He did point out some plays, but it's like, why are you disconnected? Nothing changed. We're here to win. We play a certain way, barely any roster turnover. So what's the big deal? What's the problem here? Do you just need trouble, or you need a little kickstart getting going for the season? Well, I want to see people bench, but I don't know. It might be deeper than that. And if God forbid, Jim, God forbid, if they quit on the coach again because he's so freaking mean, and he was mean to our coach, our captain, and that's rude. You can't do it. It's fucking hockey, Jim. It's hockey. My God, it's hockey. This isn't soccer or water polo or whatever.
Whoa. Soccer coaches are some of the toughest coaches.
Yeah, but you just drop. You just drop and you're safe. You just drop. My point is, it's hockey. You're getting crushed from every angle. And you're worried about words. Give me a break, man. So this team's going to kill yet another coach. That to me is baffling. I see that. Oh, towards this, towards that. Oh, the line juggling. Yeah, that's it. That's it across the board. And you did bring up like, well, why'd they change whatever they're doing? Well, to me, whatever he's trying to have them do, they're not doing. So why aren't they doing? Are they not skilled enough? They did not want to. Like it just boils my blood when we refuse to blame the players. I can select certain players like Michkov.
We're still, great. Yeah, I mean, we're still blaming the players. Like we're talking about,
we'll
guys.
Say who had a bad game. We'll say we had a bad game, but when it comes to making changes, it goes right to the coach. Like, it's not like, should we trade Farabee? Because
I don't think they're going to be getting rid of Torts anytime soon. But it's like if you have
read Twitter, you wouldn't think that.
Well, they have good players on the roster, right? Like if you look at the Flyers roster, you're like, this could be at least when I look at them, like. This is a playoff like a team that can challenge for the playoffs and maybe upset somebody in the first round. Now,
that
when we get to the goaltending, that's another story. But
it's also through orange-colored glasses. I think I did the same thing. I picked a team to go to the playoffs.
But it's it's a talented roster. There's no way that they should be struggling
I think there's a difference between established talent and potential talent, and we're potential talent. A guy like Tippett and Forrester, that's still potential talent. Could they do it? Yeah, they kind of proved they could. They've done it at least once. But the next thing after doing it once is being consistent with it. That's where their struggles are, being consistent with it. They've not proven that. Forrester got benched. He didn't get benched the first, 50 games of the year last year? They let him figure it out because he was doing everything else well. He gets benched in this game, he gets benched this earlier in the season. He's on the fourth line another game. You got Frost on the fourth line. Too many guys are not playing at, we just talked about that, giving you a full 60.
Yeah.
And certain other guys have to figure out how to make it work year after year, not one magical year. And, and they deserve more credit than one magical year. But you signed your deal. Frost had 20 goals last year, or Forrester rather. And I think we look at them and we're like, we see what they're going to be, but ultimately they're still growing on this team. So they're not going to get this team to that playoff level, at least from their perspective, unless they really break out. And I think when we looked at all of our players, we're like, this guy could be good. This is going to be a great season because this guy can be good. Not everybody was going to go upwards. Somebody was going to regress.
Right,
exactly. Somebody's going to regress. Okay. And it looks and it doesn't mean it has to be a full season thing. And I can definitely see Forrester is fighting it a bit. Tippett is definitely fighting it a bit. I've seen more from Forrester in the past. He might just be getting off to a little bit of a slow start.
Well, don't forget, he had a slow start last year, offensively anyway.
And the thing is, that's my thing. They kept him in the lineup because he was doing all the other things. Is he not doing that this year? Because he got benched and
So
he got put on the fourth line another game.
my take on that is he's in, like, they can't afford to have guys start the season like Morgan Frost starts the season every year. Season started on October, whatever it was. It's time to go now. Like, we can't wait around for guys to get going, right? Like they can't. Like, Morgan Frost has 4 points in eight games, no goals. Didn't look great last night. I'm not. I don't want to do the whole Morgan Frost thing, but like Brink's healthy scratched, Forrester's healthy scratched. The season started, guys. The team counts on these guys for offense. They need to get going. So to me, it's like, hey, wake up. Like, we need you. We need you on offense. Like you said, if you're not going to come in and do what you were doing defensively, we already did that. Like Torts said it, he wants growth. He said, right now we're stuck. We need you to grow now. Like, this is the National Hockey League. It's not a development league. We need you to, you're here to score goals. We need you to score them now, 9 games ago. You know what I mean? So that's how I'm taking the benchings and things like that. And, you'll have your people out there that, Torts has his favorites and yada, yada. But God forbid, Couturier starts on the fourth line left wing, or Tyson Forster gets benched. It's like, well, you can't say that anymore because he's doing it to everybody. He'll have Lawton on the fourth line or whatever it is. Like, I don't know. It's
and what's sad is it's one thing to want production, like actual production and goals, but we're rebuilding teams. You don't necessarily need the numbers, but they can't even keep pressure in the other zone unless it's like the third period and they're down 3 goals and they got to keep it up. Like, where's that in the second?
I think that comes from the strategy change, to tell you the truth.
What are they changing strategy from the first 2 periods to the third? Like, I don't get it.
They might be, because they're down going into the third, so they might. So I think majority of last year they were getting 2 guys in on a forecheck, and just keep an eye this year. I don't know if you're seeing bang 2 guys in forechecking that way. Just we'll have to keep an eye out for that. But it seems like there's less pressure and they're defending way more. So what they were doing last year was, the way that they were playing was, play good defensively and get out of the zone quick and get up ice. And that was working for them for a long time. Somewhere along the way, either teams took that away from them or they switched how they're doing things, and it's not working.
Is that part of the game only opening up for them when they're down 3 goals and the other team's kind of pulling back and playing keep away or something?
It very well could.
That's a shame, because you're putting yourself in a position to not have the game at your, to be able to close it out yourself. You're playing catch up way too much. And they don't even start every game terribly. They've gone down 1, but they've tied it, or they go up 1 and they go in to the intermission with the lead. Like the wild game, they went in 2-0. They were up 2-0 for the end of the second period. It was 3-3. It was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So it's like, what happens? Like, what happens in the second period that you just, and they actually got the puck out of the net in that Minnesota game, but these, except for 3 goals, which is a lot, but the game is still tied. There's these other games. I see a lot of Fedotov in these games, but they score 4 goals. They scored 3 against Kolosov, 4 against Fedotov, all in the second period, different games. They're getting Nurse on here and there, and it's incredible. They just don't come out for the second period, and it's embarrassing. It's a piss poor effort. I don't care if you're disconnected. You need to get connected or something. And we're gonna blame the coach. And he is partly to blame.
Oh, he's part of the
because you got to get your team up to play, and you are responsible for this. And that's where it's like, well, what do you do? Well, what do you do if the team quit on you? Well, why the hell did they quit on him? They just going to quit on everybody they don't like? I think we need to move on from the players at that point. And not everybody. There's certain, but there are definitely people. If you just, how many players, this core, how many coaches have they been around?
I mean, look, they're not getting rid of Torts this year. They're not.
The team has no expectations. They're in a. We have expectations for them.
No, like I'm saying,
the front office wants to see growth with the players. Yeah,
I'm saying they could have quit on. They could, start to be. I mean, I can't do anything about this. I'm just putting stuff out there. This is not me saying I want Torts gone. I just want to make sure we're clear there. There's stuff out there that Well, I'm not going to say it, but it's. I mean, you know this. It's easier to move on from a coach than it is to trade your entire team.
You can't fire 23 players. I get
And
it.
you're paying them a lot of money. You know what I mean? So, but bottom line is Tortorella is not going anywhere this year. So it's almost like I don't want to like it's a thing to keep an eye on, but it's not something that I think we should go back and forth on. You know what I mean?
I hope you're
Like
right.
he's not going anywhere. Like he's
Because you're
just
right.
not.
We shouldn't have to discuss it, but it's amazing how much of it's out there, and it's teams, they're still rebuilding.
There are a lot of people that are assuming things, but there's definitely something up.
Well, if he was brought in to get this team to win, I could absolutely see him getting fired. But ultimately, yeah, there should be some winning involved, but that's not why he's here. Yeah. And he's here to get some of the scum out, some of the players who typically don't give you a full 60. And I'm hoping this year is very telling to who you think those players could be. There's been a couple mentioned in the chat. Some of those players trying to find their footing for the 2024-2025 season. Some of them, I think, may not mix well with what this team wants now. So, I mean, I'm hoping Danny Briere and company can figure it out who that is and get them out. And I hope it's not a ton of players because that would be scary. But ultimately, you got to cut some bad weight, drop some bad weight. I mean, it is what it is. Yeah. And if they did that this year, and with Michkov coming and finding out what you had in Fedotov and Kolosov and getting a nice draft pick, it would be a painful year, but it would, to an extent, be a successful year as long as everybody didn't completely regress. Yeah. Which, if this keeps up, we'll have a couple. But I'm assuming that some of these guys will definitely be able to figure it out.
Yeah. Speaking of figuring it out, a guy that, we mentioned in the summer, and there's a lot of comments about Jamie Drysdale here. So I think this is a guy that we should talk about. We talked about him in the summer. The guy had off-season, I think it was core muscle surgery, right? And when the Flyers traded for him, I just want to remind everybody here, and I want to get to this comment from Matvei Michkov in a second. If you go back and watch, and I know no one's going to do this, but when they traded for Drysdale, the first thing I did was watch Anaheim Ducks games. And I watched all of Drysdale's shifts, and they don't play defense the same way the Flyers do. They play a lot of man-to-man out there, kind of just do your thing, just cover your guy. And Drysdale basically could do whatever he wanted on offense with the Ducks. And he was at times very dynamic, right? We get glimpses of it here sometimes. It's going to be a slow process with Jamie Drysdale, and he's not going to have it figured out right away. It's going to be sort of like how they did with Ristolainen, who they completely rebuilt Rasmus Ristolainen as I'll have to look up how old he was, but I think we should be more impressed with Risto than we actually are. And I don't want to harp too much on that, but he completely changed his game since coming to the Flyers. Jamie Drysdale will be the player. I have 100% confidence and faith that this is going to happen. He will be the player that Flyers fans think he can be. He was that with Anaheim. He just has to learn how to play the way the Flyers need him to play. And then they're going to unleash him. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. It's going to take time, though. It might take 3/4 of the year. It might take all season, And so, yeah, I think so. Let's get to the comment here real quick. Matvei Michkov comments, real question. If Drysdale was drafted here and not traded for Cutter, would he be on the Flyers or in Lehigh Valley? Andre looked better than him last night by far. And that's an opinion there. I'm not sure I saw the same thing. They're definitely two different players, though. But that's a good question, Jack. What do you think about that?
Well, for the first part of it, it's funny because let's say the Flyers did take him based on the Flyers, the COVID shutting the world down and there being no juniors, and the Flyers, I believe, had no answers at defense with Niskanen retiring and whatnot. It wouldn't surprise me if he was on the Flyers as an 18-year-old under the Fletcher as administration. But theoretically, if he had a normal up and coming, I think he would be with the Flyers, but I think he would also be a completely different player. So it's hard to put what happened to him in Anaheim, to him in Philly, but then say if he was drafted by Philly, because that wouldn't have happened. So I'll take it as, because he was an acquisition of the Cutter trade, is he getting an extended leash? And I think it's a loaded question, but the answer is ultimately yes. But a lot of that is because of the reverse development he had in Anaheim. There's a comment here that mentions he's still in Anaheim mode. I believe Sean C says that Tarian said that. They have to beat that out of him. That's going to take time. On top of having the surgery, so he can't do everything he wants to do. It's going to kill people, because you had to get what you could get for Cutter. They needed a puck-moving defenseman who can run their power play, and the guy was the 6th overall pick of the draft. He is still going to be a big project. He's one of those, when we evaluate these players year by year, we'll check in on him, but he is definitely a guy you have to just kind of put away for the future, and don't kill the process here with him every game he has. And it's going to probably be some painful, but a lot of pain actually, but they're going to have to beat it out of him so they can build him back up to the actual defenseman he is. And as Jim was saying, with what they did with Risto, it's definitely possible, and it's definitely probably better for getting him as young as they did, even though they realize how set back he was. So he's a guy, when he has a good or bad game, I don't harp too much on it. I just kind of take it for what it is. I look to see that little spark, but he's a guy you're going to have to put in the cupboard and, pick up again in a couple of years, because it's going to be a long process with him, and if they do it right, they'll break him of his Anaheim tech playing style and play actual defense, and then he'll start to chip in offensively when the time is right, and not pinch at poor times, which he has held his defenseman, his other defenseman and his goalie out to dry by making bad decisions. But it's going to be a while, and it's one of those things you just can't harp on every little game. It's going to be a long process with this one.
Yeah, hopefully, best case scenario, we start to see things turn around for him at some point this year, maybe December-ish, January-ish. I know people see the problem is people had expectations heading into this year. Michkov is here, same team's back. Torts is usually really good in year 3. Here's something
Luchenko made the team. Andre's knocking on the door. Yeah, I mean, I get it, man.
Here's something I noticed, though, with the Flyers is over the summer, they didn't really use the word rebuild a lot. Like, they kind of tiptoed around it. And all of a sudden, the team starts out of the gates a little slow, and they start losing games. And that word starts popping back up in guys' vocabulary. Tortorella's using it. I haven't heard Briere use it necessarily, but Tortorella used that word. We're rebuilding here, yada, yada. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting, because I didn't hear that word once all summer. So I thought that was interesting. Maybe they're switching gears, or, they definitely know how to talk to the fans. That's for sure. Not that they're being deceptive, but didn't hear that rebuild word all summer. Jack, let's stick to the defense here for a second. So I mentioned Ristolainen earlier in the episode. Cam York's obviously out. They said 2 weeks. He's on the IR or the IL, whatever it's called. I don't really want to harp on that too much, but they said 2 weeks. I'll believe 2 weeks. I'm going to assume it's going to be longer there. So the defense pairings had to change up.
Real quick, how do you pronounce his name? Michkov? I think that's how you say it. He's 20 years old. Drysdale was 18. And Drysdale actually put up points, but he was like a minus 40 something. It's just two different situations.
Yeah. Yeah, So Ristolainen and Sanheim are a pair. Again, they played together before. And I mentioned Ristolainen basically rebuilt himself. Number one, you have to put the ego aside, which is impressive in its own right for a professional athlete, and allowed himself to be rebuilt. He's no longer the 40-point offensive, big right-handed offensive defenseman. Still big, still right-handed, but he's known as more the stay-at-home guy. He's not out of position going for big hits anymore, which I think we forget that he used to be that kind of player, like pretty irresponsible in the defensive zone. All of a sudden, And I think I said this last year and over the summer, and nobody kind of really wanted to, say, oh, yeah, Risto is pretty important. He's a top 4 guy. He's playing on the top pair right now by default, which makes me laugh because nobody's out there calling Ristolainen a top pair guy, even though he's playing top pair. That's because it's not how it works.
Andrew McDonald play top pair.
Well, my whole thing with that is just because a guy plays top pair by default doesn't mean he's a top pair guy.
Right.
We like to do that with Cam York and Travis.
Yeah, Rex Grossman was a starting quarterback in the NFL for like a good couple of years.
Right.
Like, was he really though? Like, come on.
Right. So I guess what I'm getting at here is Ristolainen's playing so well that the last couple games he's allowed Travis Sanheim to play the way that he wants to play. And I think, did he score in the Wild game? Do you remember, Jack?
I mean, he did, but he kind of stole it from Coots. So it's actually funny that you bring that up. It was going in, and you have to like make sure it goes in. You can't say, "Oh, that's Coots' hat trick goal. I'm not going to touch it." So he like kind of stole the hat trick from Coots. So it was great that Coots came back and actually did get the hat trick. So I was wondering, I was like, "Yeah, would they bust his balls for that?" So he did get the goal. He was right where he was supposed to be. Risto, he was one of the guys, especially off. See, my thing with his offensively, I'm enjoying Risto. like it is amazing what. Sometimes I feel like it's a light switch. I feel like sometimes he makes some interesting decisions. But lately, it's hard to argue. He did get the goal. If you had I don't want to cut you off completely. I don't know if you had a point for that.
Yeah, Sanheim's playing really well. So I'm like, I'm gonna stay on this. I think I need that pair to stay together because Sanheim can be a weapon if he's allowed to be. When he's paired with Cam York, it's almost like he's watered down a little bit. He can't do all the things that he wants to do. That's a great second pair, Sanheim Ristolainen. If we want to keep Cam York on the top pair, I don't want him paired with Drysdale. I just for the sole reason that they're too similar in build. It's just a small top pair. You don't have many top pairs that small. And maybe that's irrational of me, but go out and find a top pair, maybe a defensive guy if you want, and let Cam York kind of grow a little bit more now. Torts quoted last year saying he's the best defenseman on the team. Okay. He's got offensive game to him. Are we just going to suppress that now? Like find a defensive top pairing defensive guy. I don't know who that is, and allow Cam York to be this all around defender now. And then, so you might wonder, okay, well, where does that leave Jamie Drysdale, right? What's the big deal with having a very good third pair of Nick Seeler and Jamie Drysdale now, right? Like while Drysdale gets acclimated and he's going through this whole injury thing and he's figuring out, how to play for the Flyers, you don't have to give him 20 minutes a night, 18 minutes a night. Give him third pair minutes and power play time. You know what I mean? Use him in that way. And hey, when his next contract comes up, he's probably not going to get $5-6 million. You know what I mean? Like, in that sense, also, you're keeping him under, you're keeping him his salary. It sucks to say you're not doing it intentionally, but his next contract may not be, something astronomical, So I don't know who that defender is. And I know that it's a lot easier to say, oh, just go get a top pair guy to match up with Cam York. But after seeing Sanheim and Ristolainen, I think that's something that should be looked at. What do you think?
Oh, well, first off, from the other aspect of it, just keeping them together so there's some kind of cohesion, and we can, Torts mentioned, to trying different pieces out and seeing what works. Okay, well, you have a top line now that works, and you have a defensive pairing that works. Let's, at least for this, the next 10 games, maybe like keep them together and mix and match with whatever else until you can figure some things out and get this team out of the cellar. Get them back to playing at a respectable level. So, yeah, if you're getting the most out of Sanheim with that pairing and it's working, keep them together, and figure out what else you have with the rest of the team. And then, some of what you mentioned might be something for the off season. And I mean, you never know if the team gets ticked off enough, but that's ultimately what you have to do. And Vineet even mentions, I don't know if I put York and Drysdale together, but I'm sure you should try it at some point. This season is still a fact-finding season. You have to find out what you have in certain players. And I'm not so much crazy about Drysdale. I'll like take that with a grain of salt because of certain factors we discussed earlier. Doesn't mean I wouldn't like to see them try it out. But ultimately, Jim, I do agree with you. Drysdale right now, you're kind of like, I don't want to say you're sheltering him, but he doesn't have to be out there for like all these minutes. He fits the perfect profile of a guy to play on your third pair and on your power play. That's all he needs to do this year. If he's recovering from injury, you want to negate some criticism and let him just ease back in and do what he knows how to do best, and then have the defense come along. That would make sense to me as well. So there's a couple of things I hope that this team is seeing and considering, and I guess we'll see. It's not even 10 games yet, so we'll see.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going through some of the comments now. Sorry, guys. I got a lot of catching up to do, and there's some funny stuff in there. All right. So we talked defense. We talked some of the slower start guys. We are 45 minutes in, Jack. Let's get one more. Let's transition from negative to positive. And let's start with, I think, Aleksei Kolosov getting his first start for the Philadelphia Flyers. So huge shot sent across the bow, in my opinion, to Ivan Fedotov, who hasn't looked great. But I think if you go back and look at some of the goals he's given up, I'm going to say 70% of them can be attributed to the play in front of him. That's not to say, though, that he's still giving up some clunkers, which you can't really. The way the Flyers are playing, they can't afford to be giving those up. But Kolosov, Jack, gets the start last night. What did you think?
I thought early on he was a little shaky. I thought his rebound control needed some serious work. But as the game went on, I thought he got better with all of that. Really hard for me. I thought he played well. It was really hard for me to say this goal's on you. You can make an argument for the Cole Caulfield one, as I alluded to earlier. Does need to cover the whole post. There was a little pocket open, and Caulfield found that pocket. That's what goal scorers do. But come on, being thrown into your first game like that on the end of the back-to-back. I know they didn't play, the Oilers or anything like that, but you played a team that has some shooters on it, some young talent, and I thought he was up to the task. I think they could have won that game if they had actually given them an effort. That was one of the worst effort performances I've seen from this team in this early going. And I can really put only one goal on the guy. And even then you can make an argument. That's what I want to see. So if you look at the box score, you're going to be, the Flyers goaltending woes. It's like, no, it wasn't him. Definitely wasn't him. Torts said so himself. And you thought it was a shot across the bow that they brought him up. And it's even more of a shot across the bow that he actually played well. And the coach came out and complimented his play. Mm-hmm. So there's that as well.
Yeah. I like you said, the only goal that if you want to pick him apart for, the Caulfield goal. But like you said, man, he's going to find those windows. If you want to give him crap over the Jake Evans goal, because I swear that was a shot pass, I think, from the blue line that live, being there, it looked like it went across the zone in slow mo. It went like this across the zone.
Oh, that was
you could see where the puck was going, and you're like, oh God, is that going to get there? And it did. and obviously he scored, but it's like, holy crap.
Is that
crap,
where Brendan Gallagher had the assist? And he was like,
probably.
Yeah. Wow. How did that happen?
Dude, it was like, I'm watching the puck and it's like, I'm like, is anybody going to get that? No, there's nobody there. Oh my God. He's all by himself. And yeah, he scored. So I can't even put that on him really,
Yeah. And the other one goes off a guy's shin pad and you're like, come on. No, he did what he did more than enough for them to win that game. At the very least, be competitive. Come on, it's the Canadians. They're rebuilding, just like you are.
I tell you what, he's a lot easier to watch, a lot easier on the eyes than Fedotov. Fedotov makes my eyes hurt when I watch him. It's I don't know how to. It's like nails on a chalkboard, but for your eyes, it hurts. It's it just doesn't seem right watching him. I hope he figures it out. And look, if he's going to play well, I can watch ugly goaltending. I'm not a big goalie guy anyway, but it's like, holy crap, man, this guy, like, he's not smooth in his motions at all. And I get that he's a big dude, but just from optics alone, I prefer to watch Kolosov as long as he's keeping the puck out of the net, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, he started to inspire confidence later. Like in preseason, it was the same deal. Fedotov was very tough to watch, and Kolosov's half game or two half games. Like I remember feeling like, okay, this is what a goalie's supposed to look like. Like, and it gave you confidence immediately. Like he knows what he's supposed to do. I didn't get that immediately in this game because he was so shaky, but once he like didn't let half the goals in the net, and the ones that were let in early weren't really his fault, I was like, all right, well, he's doing his part.
Yeah.
Couldn't say that for Fedotov. Not in any game he's played. The best Fedotov gave me was that Capitals game, like the end of the second and the third period, and that's it. That gave you some fight and some hope, I guess, but that might not be enough. I'm sure we'll see him again, but he's gonna have to do a lot better than that. Now Kolosov is like, yeah, I'm clearly better than you. So we'll see what happens.
This was my worry before the season, like, and I made a point to go out and ask guys, hey, how does Fedotov look? Does he look okay? Does he look good? And nobody could say he looked good. They didn't say he looked bad, but nobody said, yeah, he looks, he looks the part. You'll get the typical cliche responses. I didn't get that. All I heard was, yeah, it's hard to tell during camp. And it's like, okay, well, Urson looks good during camp. If you ask somebody about Urson, they tell you, yeah. So I took that as sometimes when people don't want to be negative, and it's perfectly fine for me. Like, you just have to be able to recognize it. If people don't come out and tell you, hey, this guy looks good, it probably means when they say, we'll see, it's like, okay, things aren't going great. So that's why, like, my worry was kind of amplified heading into the season. And look, he's only had 2 or 3 games in the NHL this year in his own pads and the yada yada. So I'll give him all the slack. Flyers aren't doing anything amazing this year, It's going to be the Michkov show, and let's see where they finish in the standings. So I'll give Fedotov time to figure it out. But man, holy shit, he doesn't look like an NHL goalie at times.
And just remember, this is a year where we're supposed to figure things out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's going to be painful, and fans aren't going to get it. And that's the other reason why they go after the coach. Is like, guys, there's a plan in place here. I get it. But, like, winning the cup is not, unfortunately, for this season, the number one goal for a reason.
No doubt. Before we get to the most positive part of our show, which I kind of can't wait to get to, we should touch on this because Zamula is part of the decor. We talked about the decor a lot tonight. I really appreciate what Tortorella said, and whether you're a fan of Torts or not, if you can take the bias out of it for a second, he stands up for his guys when they deserve to be stuck up for. I guess, like, he kind of, like Fedotov, sometimes he puts under the bus a little bit there. If they deserve the criticism, he's not shy about criticizing. But Zamula doesn't look the same as he did towards the end of last season. He got better, I thought, as the season went on last year. Tortorella made a point to mention, hey, maybe we put too much on this guy's plate. Maybe he just needs a few games to kind of reset. He mentioned being the personal translator for Michkov, which maybe that's not necessarily fair. Maybe it's taking away from his time focusing on the game. It's just too much on his plate at once, which when you think about it, yeah, sure. Okay. He's forced to be this, the Flyers savior, personal translator. And it's got to be like mentally maybe a little bit exhausting. I don't know. What do you think, Jeff?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's what I would say if I was the coach and I was trying to back up some pretty piss poor play from Zamula. It's been pretty embarrassing. I mean, when I watched the second power play unit, I'm on high alert for a shorthanded goal.
Look, I like Zamula, but I hate that he's on the power play.
It's like, it's not worth the risk of what could happen because he has that shot from the point or whatever the hell. Like, just put Andre out there at this point. Like, come on. We should have Drysdale on the top pair. And if you got York, you want to get in there. Like, you don't need Zamula on your power play. You don't need him anywhere except for maybe the press box. Like, I'm telling you, he should be limited. And it is what it is. But I never felt the guy had all that much talent. Like, people would talk about him in our future moving up. And I'm like, I see it. Maybe he's an NHL guy, but like replacement level. maybe slightly better.
Yeah.
You know, so like that's awesome because I love that stuff. You know, I do. Like, I'm all about the draft, especially now. These last couple of games have had me doing so much draft research. It's great. So yes, Edmonton, keep losing, baby. Yeah. So like, I just didn't see. I just didn't see like why people were so gung ho. Maybe when we first picked him up, but like he's been with us, it feels like forever now. And yes, he speaks Russian. Like, is that really that much on his plate to speak his native language? Like,
well, I think
he's finally got a friend here because he spoke about when he first came over, and that was with his junior team, not with the Flyers. And he was like in tears because he couldn't understand anybody and whatnot. And It was an issue. So I think what he's doing for Michkov, it's great. But like he himself has another Russian, like somebody to talk to. I thought that would be a good thing for Zamula. Like it'd be a two-pronged approach. But because he has to translate, he sucks at hockey. Like I don't know.
Well, that's what I mean. Like the mental point of it or whatever. Like, look, he's not getting paid to be the personal translator for Matvei Michkov, at least not to our knowledge.
Sure?
At least not to our knowledge. Yeah,
I think he's getting paid like Fedotov is getting paid, if you know what I mean.
It could be. It could be. But so like if I'm him and I'm playing bad, and even though I'm playing bad, I gotta be Michkov's, personal translator, and it's just one more thing I gotta do. And like I don't really want to do it. Like, yeah, I speak Russian, but at what point am I being taken advantage of here, kind of thing? I don't know. I don't like look, like when things go bad, like you start thinking all kinds of crazy shit like that. So that's where I'm coming from with that. Like maybe he needed a mental break. Really, the Flyers should have a translator.
Oh yeah, 100%. They should have 4 of them. 100%. Like, come on, they're Comcast, for Christ's sake. This shouldn't even be a conversation. Yeah,
I reached out to Ann Sand because he put an article out, I think, earlier today. Maybe you guys can check it out. I think it's for Patterson Ave now. And I asked him, I said, hey, whatever happened to that Slav? I forget his name. I apologize, but he showed up when Michkov showed up. I think his first name was Slava. And he said he's the skills/skating coach and he's not always around. So I'm like, oh, so they really don't have a guy that can, like a personal translator for Michkov, Kolosov, Fedotov, whoever. And they Slava Kuznetsov. Thanks, Sean C. They kind of like you need that. And I'm wondering also, like, do you not have that because you want to protect these guys? Like maybe, oh, we don't have a translator. You can't actually ask them any questions. Oops. You know what I mean? So I wonder if it's intentional, and if it's not intentional, get one in here, man. Like, how much do they cost?
It's Comcast. Come on.
Yeah.
Jesus. Like, yeah, that's silly to me. Yeah. Like, I liked having a guy in the locker room on the team that did it, but for like other stuff, you should have been on the plane with the guy when he came over and they picked him up.
Yeah.
Like that's an easy one. Like, I don't know.
No,
I don't know. I guess they have a budget, I guess, as everybody's Comcast bill goes through the roof.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's maybe there's something to that. Personally, I'm like, whatever. It just tells me he's only a part of the future because he can do that. Like, it's a nice niche, like him and Fedotov. I'm like, great. We have the rushing trio and 2 of them are NHL players. Wonderful. So I don't know. That'll, I hope, work itself out anyway. But Zamula's play needed to be discussed. It's like, dude, why are we even with York out 2 weeks, which will also be an interesting, at least 2 weeks, an interesting situation for them to navigate. I pretty much hope I want to see. I liked what you said, Drysdale and Sealer as your third pairing. I guess stick Andre with York and then keep Sanheim and Aristo together. York, Jesus Christ. With Eric Johnson, that'll probably be your 3 actually, because you don't have York. And then Sanheim and Aristo, it's going to go by minutes. I'm not going to say one's a true 1 or 2, just situationally and whatnot. Play them as need be. But I think that's what we're going to see going into these next couple of games. Keep your first line together and figure out your middle 6, man. Personally, I don't know what they're doing at their lower middle 6. I look, Luchenko's now gone. So maybe get that fourth line that like was one of the best fourth lines in hockey together again. I don't know why Paling is finding himself at the 2C, the 3C. Like, is he really that important to your future? Is he really a guy? Or like, if you're punishing Frost a game, okay, I get it. But I really want to see like Noah Cates play center. I want to see Morgan Frost play top line center. Like, let's keep the fourth line guys on the fourth line, please, and figure out our middle six, particularly our second and third lines. Get Owen Tippett going, get Forrester going, get this season back on track.
Yeah, speaking of back on track, let's talk about the most positive part of the season so far, and that is
Jason's first game, a 7-5
Jason's
win.
first game.
It took me years to see a hat trick, Jim. His first game, he gets a hat trick from the captain, 5-point night from Coots, 5-point night from Konechny, goal and assist from Michkov, a win, a regulation win, the first of the season. I mean, that just was the best first game I could ask for.
Maybe you need to bring him. Maybe you need season tickets, Jack.
I was getting a lot of that. I was
Yeah.
getting a lot of that. So we'll have to need a couple of lines for the old wife. But other than that, it's all about the Flyers.
I mean, we all depend on Jason to do anything here.
And look, my last name is Smith, so his name is Jason Smith. Was a former Flyers captain. I'm just saying.
How about that?
I'm just saying.
All right. So speaking of Flyer captains, you mentioned Couturier, 5-point night, got on track, 6 points on the season now. And, good for him. Love that, that happened for Couturier. I think it was his third ever hat trick, his second career regular season hat trick. I more so want to talk about Konechny and Michkov here. TK, I think first or second shift of that game, you could tell like there was a buzz. I talk a lot sometimes about how TK stands out from other players on the Flyers. Like if you watch him live, you can see it. The way he moves, the way he skates on the ice, the way he reacts, the way he hits space. That's how he looked on Saturday. And I said it, TK's buzzing. He's gonna have a game. He might get a couple. Only scored once. Ended up collecting 4 assists, 5-point night for TK. And it was incredible.
The pass he made Sealer was awesome.
Yeah, it really was. Like he sets up Nick, and kudos to Sealer for skating into space.
You saw when he scored, though, he pointed right at Konechny. It was like, nice pass. It was awesome.
That was, the team can play to that level. It's just, okay, how do we do it consistently here? So I feel like Michkov finally came over, Jack, and he leads all rookies or he's tied for the lead in points with Logan Stankoven.
Yeah, but Stankoven's like the assist guy.
Right.
Michkov does it all.
Right. Michkov's leading all rookies in goals. He is tied in the NHL for 10th in points with 9. So what have we seen from Michkov so far? And let me just say this right away. The thing that's standing out to me the most, more than anything, if you give this kid, and it blows my mind sometimes when I watch him that he's 19 years old, if you give him time and space, he will make you pay. And the Flyers, I mean, they had Claude Giroux, but to me, he was always a pass first kind of guy. And if you disagree with me, that's fine. We could talk about it. Let's do it on another show. Michkov is always looking to score. Always. Like, that's not to say that he's not going to set up teammates, because he did that a few times last night, or he tried to. He's always looking to the goal first. And
what I like about what you said there, Jim, you didn't say he's always looking to shoot. You said he's always looking to score.
Yeah.
Because his brain works a certain way. And it's like, what is the best way to get the puck in the back of the net? Because if it's shooting, yeah, I can shoot. Or is it passing? Where guys like Tippett are just, I only shoot. And guys like Voracek and G are like, we need to pass. He is like, what is best for the play and situation that is right in front of me?
He's the way that I can describe, like, it's deadly, like cold-blooded sniper type stuff. And And like that gets me excited. Like what I've noticed over the years, and maybe it's because the Flyers have been so mediocre for so long, is I'm kind of just, let's kind of just watch and see how things play out. And I don't get overly excited. Like I got excited last year when Tippett scored that spinorama goal. But when I watch Michkov with space, it's almost like something is going to happen at this point. And at 19, and he's only played for here for 9 games, it's kind of blowing my mind a little bit. Like the best is yet to come, knock on wood, with Michkov. You know what I mean? So it's kind of giving me the warm fuzzy feeling a little bit.
19. It's funny because there's Montreal fans and just haters. They're he's a power play merchant. He's a power play merchant. He's 19 years old. He is 19 years old playing in this team, man. Oh, there you go. There you go, Jim. Your favorite word.
Yeah, he got that dog in him.
Dog. I mean, no matter what happens this season, I will come away with, if the Michkov keeps this up, that's ultimately all that really matters. Yes, you want to see growth in a lot of players, but come on. Like, that's really what we wanted to see, and to do it at such a young age. Oh, beautiful. I love it. It's so much fun. I bought my jersey and I wore it that day. It was awesome. The fact that he got on the score sheet and score. Oh man, we were going nuts. It was awesome.
You really got it all that night, tell you the truth. Like you couldn't have picked a better game.
Seriously, it was amazing. The only thing that would have been better was like an overtime Michkov goal or something. Like that's like just ludicrous. Like it was incredible.
Yeah, for sure. And he's ours. He's
ours.
Property of the Flyers, and he's here, and he's scoring big goals already. So Sean C brings up here, he's gone for that Michigan move at least 3 times in the last week.
Nope.
Just couldn't corral. Yeah, he looked like he wanted to attempt it twice last night. I
remember the very first time it was a different game. He tried it. The puck fell off his stick, and then they slashed his stick right out of his hands, maybe even broken it. It's not been pretty.
Yeah.
It's funny that it begs the question, like, is that slashing? Like they see it coming, they're like, whoa. Yeah, and never gets called. You know?
Should be. All right.
Theoretically, by rule, as written, yeah, but what do I know?
Yeah, we haven't seen the referees go by the book.
I love how they always say
so
referees are in early season form too. They have preseason too. I mean, no, they're in mid-season form. They're exactly how they always are.
They've been a little rough. And usually I'll lay off the refs a little bit because, I don't know if I'm being biased or not, but it's been rough to start this year. And look, I'm not going to say that the Flyers aren't getting calls and yada yada, but it just seems like a lot more going against them, at least lately.
Well, they are. I'll meet you halfway. They are, yes, but they are, I believe, the most penalized team in the NHL.
Yeah, and they are.
Lots on them too.
That's what I mean. There's some of them I'm like, you got to be kidding me. But then, like on the flip side, there are plays where I'm like, wait, like you're not going to call that? Like you just called that one way. You're not going to call it the same? I don't know.
That's irritating. Like if you're going to call something I disagree with, at least call it both ways. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. It's like in baseball. You have a strike zone that if it's wrong, at least have it be wrong for both teams because then they can adjust,
Consistent.
And it's just it's a corral. It's what's wild out there. Whatever happens, just
right.
Hold your breath. But at the same time, like I thought that Coots was going to get tossed from that one game. Was it Coots? Somebody came running, or Sealer maybe. There was like a fight, gloves dropped, guy comes running in as a third guy. I think it was Sealer because he didn't want what's his name from Montreal? I can't say his last name. It starts with an X. Yeah. It's a Chinese name. Like, come on. He didn't want him fighting Coots. And, well, it's the third man in. Like, I found out like that's only if they actually fight, aka 5-minute majors are assessed to both players. If you're a third man into that, then you get tossed. So that's not what happened. They become close to having even more penalty minutes.
I'm glad you brought that up because I had a Montreal guy in the comments of my post game last night. And, obviously Montreal fans were sad that the third man in came and the only guy that got the penalty of that whole thing was the Montreal player. And look, here's what I saw. Couturier skated by Doc and I guess caught him in the face somehow with something. It looked like the numbers on his jersey maybe whipped him in the face. I don't know. I don't know what made contact with
look,
him.
he did a little spin, touched his face, but ultimately was completely fine. If you get smacked in the head, you're not completely fine. So that should tell you what you need to know right there. But go ahead.
Right. It was like he deserved an Academy Award or something. But like, I don't know what part hit Couturier. Anyways, they're both kind of jawing back and forth. You know, I think it was ended up being after the play, and Xhekaj comes in out of nowhere to separate Coots from that. So if there's a third man in, like that's what the penalty was for instigating that. Like Couturier doesn't want to fight Xhekaj. Like he's actually
it wasn't a
tough
dirty
dude.
play. It looked like it was close, and maybe it almost was, but ultimately it wasn't. He played the puck. I think Coots didn't even know. He wasn't trying to do that. And again, they didn't fight. 5-minute majors were not assessed to both players, so therefore the third man in. There's no unless those majors were assessed, there is no third man in. It's just a scrum. And otherwise, they'd be throwing guys out in scrums left and right. That's why that is what it is. So ultimately, that's why that happened.
I loved that Sealer got involved in that for two reasons. Like number one, you don't want Couturier fighting that guy. He would have got fucked up. I'm sorry, Coots. You're tough dude and everything.
But that's the thing. Why are they? I know that. I'm sorry. You finish.
No, number two is Coots didn't want to fight. If you go back and watch that, he even makes a face like, all right, fuck, like I'll do this. But then thank God Sealer kind of skates in and breaks it up. Couturier wanted no part of that, but Xhekaj kind of had him against the wall, and I think he dropped his gloves.
And he didn't even know it was coming, so it was easy to get Coots. So that's the other thing. It's like, all right, let's change the scenario. It's 2006, and that's Crosby. And the other guy, whoever goes and grabs Crosby, and out comes Larocque to, break that up. Or is the team crying about that? No, they'd be like, yeah, you got to protect your star. Hello, he's your captain, he's your star. Maybe Coots isn't our star, but he's still our captain. He's not a fighter. He's not going to, he may have fought, but he's not fighting for the sake of fighting because he gave a bad hit. He's fighting to, you don't put up with that with our team, but he's not going against heavyweights. And didn't they say that guy is like crazy? Like there's one guy you don't want to fight, it's that guy.
He's a tough.
So they should have sent three guys, a third, fourth, and fifth man in to get Coots out of there. I don't care. Right. All Montreal knows how to do is cry and complain. So I really don't give a rat's ass what they have to say.
They won the damn game and they're complaining about one play. Like
That's all they do. That's all they do. That's all they do. There's an original 6 team, but they'll always be number one in their minds.
Imagine
and a lot of that's the Cups.
Imagine Delorier trying to fight Nick Suzuki.
That's my point.
It's pathetic.
Well, Suzuki does something he doesn't even realize he did, and he skates in there, grab it. You're not going to protect your guy. Well, then you're an idiot. Right, your team's pathetic. A bunch of morons crying about a penalty. Like for a team that is like the hockey town, like they don't know a lot of hockey.
Yeah, I mean they're extremely, extremely biased. But hey, what are you going to do? Sean C. comment. I don't know. So were you able to see? Did the broadcast talk about that at all? Gallagher starting shit with Michkov. That was all game.
Showed it. They showed him. They showed him talking to it and all that stuff. Lord knows what that clown was saying, but Michkov has ultimately been fine with that stuff. He doesn't let it rattle him a little too much. Which game was it where they were talking trash at wing and they both came in to take the face off? Like, do you remember that? It was Michkov. Like, I can't remember what game that was, but they were talking smack at the wing, and then the two wingers came in to take the face off. Mm-hmm. Like, he seems to not be bothered by this stuff.
Nah. Yeah, I don't even think he understands what the hell they're saying.
That's probably maybe that's part of it.
It sounds
like I don't like you. Let's fight. Okay, face off.
I mean, he is holding his own.
See, there you go, Vinny. Thank you, sir. Like somebody else was yelling at him. He's just talking right back. He's not cowering. He's not looking for help. He's standing his ground. He's not being stupid. He's not being reckless. But he probably is used to being so good and having people try to get under his skin that he knows why they're doing it. And is like, yeah, if you're doing this to me, I must be doing my job. The only thing I didn't like was the borderline boarding hit that he had against the boards. I thought it was boarding, but most people are trying to explain to me based on where he was hit, why it's not. I don't know.
Was that earlier in the season that happened?
Yeah, okay. It was. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know about that, but whatever. It's hockey at the end of the day. And welcome to the NHL. Welcome to the guy who leads rookies in points, you jerk off. So I think he handles himself well. I think he handles all that stuff, everything well. He's not being drawn into taking a dumb penalty. It's not getting under his skin. He's still being productive. So I like how he's handling himself so far.
Yeah, me too. Impressive especially for a player his age in a new country, yada, yada. Man, I think we covered everything. We're in midseason form ourselves here. An hour and 15-minute show.
Well, we don't take a break, Jim. We did 80 or 50. How many weeks are there in a year? 56? 52? 52. Yeah. 52. We did 51 shows last year. So there is only midseason form for us, Jim.
That's right. We're always in midseason form. So let me see. The Flyers have 2 games left this week, or 2 games this week, and then they're back. So they have Boston. Wait, I'm sorry. It's St. Louis on Halloween, which is Thursday, at home. And then they have Boston at home
tomorrow,
on Saturday.
No, they got Boston tomorrow.
Okay, so all right, so they have 3 games this week. Then it's Boston in Boston tomorrow.
Boston's 4-4-1,
and then St. Louis Thursday, and then
St.
Boston
Louis
home.
5-4, and then Saturday. Yep, Boston again. This time at home. Yep, should be. They never play Boston well, so that'll be great.
That's like a buzzsaw play. That's a buzzsaw teams right there. Like all like similar in style and build. Like those are like heavy teams, man. I don't know. Boston,
not looking good. Boston, and then
Carolina.
After those, then they play Carolina.
That's I don't know, man. This things could get ugly.
And then they play Tampa.
Yeah. And look, when we start saying things could get ugly, they always come out and the Flyers are on a 4-game win streak. But
and then they play Florida.
When you see that, Jack, like what goes through your mind? Like, oh shit.
November 11th is what I see. They play the 7-2 Sharks.
No,
I mean, I don't know. It's like a 2-angled approach. I got the whole look, they got 3 first-round picks. Having a top pick this year would be great, but at some point, I can't do a whole nother season of this. Guys got to just get better. Like the pick sounds great, but that means certain guys. A lot of guys regress, and that's not good. Like I want to see them get back to where they were last year. Maybe they're not as good. They can't put up as many goals, but ultimately they play as a team. They're hard to beat. They're hard to play against. Not these first 9 games. This has been a joke. Even their 7-5 win, there was a large chunk of time where they were not playing up to par. This is not Flyers hockey. Thought we escaped that last year. We'll see.
Yeah, hopefully. All right, boys and girls, let's wrap this one up. Thank you all for tuning in. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to subscribe and follow us on YouTube, Apple Podcast, or Spotify. Make sure to set alerts so you're the first to know when we drop a new show. And for all of our latest episodes, articles, and updates, head over to hwhockey.net. I want to say thank you to everybody in the comments. It feels like we're back tonight. Like the Flyers are back. The listeners, the viewers are back. The show felt like we're in the full swing of things. It feels good. It feels good to be back. So let's wrap this one up. For Jack, I'm Jim. You guys are watching HW Hockey YouTube channel. We'll see you all. Well, I'll see you tomorrow night after the Bruins-Flyers game. See you guys.
Thanks, guys. Awesome.